MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in live here from Nashville, the beautiful La Quinta Inn, sponsored by Wyndham and Suites. Not a sponsor, no free sponsors here. But hey, my man Alan Jackson said it best. Time is cheap, or talk is cheap, and time is a waste. And look, I feel like a lot of people do a lot of talking. I feel like a lot of people say that they want to improve upon themselves. A lot of people say and talk about how they want to pursue excellence, particularly football coaches. Okay, coaches come out all the time and they use all these cliches about how it's the pursuit of excellence and all these good things. And they talk and they talk and they talk. But few people from the coaching world, or at least in my world of football, embody the pursuit of excellence quite like Kirby Smart, in my opinion. When I listen to that man talk every single time, I find that he has been doing some type of deep and introspective thoughts. That is why he is talking to me. Okay, he very clearly spends hours, if not multiple hours upon his day, in deep self-introspective thought that is designed and put into his schedule in order for him to improve. Whatever it is about his life, whatever it is about his system, whatever it is about his day-to-day organization, he is trying to get better. It's what he does. It's what he embodies. And when you listen to him talk, particularly for 30, 35, 40 minutes like we did today, I think you hear that, and that resonates pretty clearly. I see a coach, when I listen to Kirby Smart talk, that is not only willing to demand excellence from those around him, but demands it from himself. We're going to talk about some things tonight, just in general, from his speech today, that were clearly byproducts of some deep thought about how we are going to improve as a football program, even after 2 national titles. You'll hear a lot tonight about how they've brought in professionals to help with certain portions of their organization that maybe he wasn't the best at. Or you'll hear us talk tonight about certain aspects of his day-to-day routine that he's maybe stepped back from in order to give back into other aspects of his life as a football coach. So I think it's important that I don't even know how to connote this and explain it to you, because I'm known as the Georgia beat guy. I'm known as the guy who covers Georgia. But from a human perspective, okay, Kirby Smart, I'm not saying he should be studied, but there is some life lessons to be learned when the man speaks every single time. When I listen to Kirby talk, okay, as an unbiased person, there are multiple times you will hear me make an auditory sound of that's a good word. What he just laid on me was some good. You know what I mean? And we're going to talk about some of those tonight. But I wanted to open my show with the fact that talk is cheap, man. I listen to a bunch of freaking football coaches talk. And 9 times out of 10, they say the same stuff. Okay, the same stuff that their coach said, or the same stuff that the coach before them said. And there is an aspect of coaching that is redundancy. And there is an aspect of coaching that is taking from those before you and taking the good and leaving the bad. But I think it's impossible to listen to Kirby speak and not realize that, oh, damn, this guy clearly thinks about or it takes time every single day for self-improvement. And again, man, like there's a lot of people in this world that say, I want to be great. There's a lot of people in this world that go out of their way to try to act like they're getting better, but they don't pour in the daily sacrifices that are required to be excellent. So that was my impression, immediate impression from today's media day with Kirby Smart and the folks from Georgia. I want to take the time out to give you a chance to like, subscribe, rate, and review, all that good stuff. Hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you're firing off in that chat. But I also want to bring the boys in because, guys, Jay, Will, Kirby, I got to tell you, we haven't had a ton of people on this channel. You know what I mean? We don't invite a bunch of folks on. We kind of just do our thing. And we don't have a lot of, negative reactions. I get a lot of, hey, fathead, don't know what he's talking about kind of thing. But when guests come on, almost all the time they get flamed for something. You know what I mean? There's negative feedback. There's negative vitriol on every bit of the internet. Boys, first debut yesterday, not a negative comment one.
That's not good because that just means tonight they're going to pour it on us. Instead of you open the door to it, you give them an idea for it. I think it's
going to get flamed out.
That's okay. That's growth. Yeah.
That's growth. So we watched Kirby obviously talk today. And I thought, his opening was filled with a couple jokes. He took a stab at Eli Drinkowitz, right? Said he was going to set a timer for 10 minutes, went over 10 minutes, of course, went about 14 and a half today. But in his opening, he talked about two things that I just could not really envision Kirby Smart doing, one of which is taking a vacation. So I want to ask you, first of all, what is Kirby Smart like on vacation? Vacation Kirby Smart, what do you think?
I don't know. That's tough because it's so hard to picture him in that type of setting where, like, you're in a place where you're supposed to be doing nothing. But I would see him as the type of guy that we'll say he's at the beach, that he sits under the tent or the umbrella and he's just there. That's what he's doing all day long. He's going to be in front of the water in his own mind and his own thoughts, scheming up whatever he is and just be there with his family. But that's about it. Like, if he's going to be low key, he's going to be low key.
Any beer, any liquor? What do you think? Because if he's under tent dad at the beach, definitely shit hammered by the end of that. Definitely a beer guy. Have to be a beer guy too in that situation. What about you, Kirby?
I think he's probably the happiest version of Kirby Smart. I mean, if you ever watch how he does interviews, he talks a lot about how much he wants to spend time with his family, how much he spends away from his family because of that. So I think that when he's finally got a chance to not talk to recruits or be away from that, I think he really knows what it.
Yeah, he is much more of a family guy than I think some people lead on. You see the hyper-focused football guy. You see the guy that's like obsessed with winning. And I think it goes by the wayside that he is. I mean, I don't know. I'm not directly tied to the guy. I don't know how great of a father he is, but he talks about fatherhood. And it's not something that, and it's not a Kirby versus Nick thing. But let's be honest. I don't hear Nick Saban talk about fatherhood. I don't hear Nick Saban talk about his daughter. I don't hear Nick Saban talking about his kids at all. So, and, to each their own. I admire someone who is completely poured into their profession, absolutely obsessed with what it is that they are doing, but still finds an opportunity and a chance to be a great dad. And I think listening to him talk about it today is very special to him that he gets to do that with his parents. And he made a sly comment about his wife, maybe not necessarily liking that because they in-laws and whatever, but I think it's a good thing. Kirby's dad, obviously, a coach as well. He's a coach's son. So listening to him talk about how July has always been a very special time for the Smart family because they've always been coaching, right? August and September become hellstorms for football families. So to see that be ingrained I envision Kirby Smart being the dad that has the packing and unpacking of the beach setup down to the absolute T. You know what I mean? Like never once is that beach bag improperly packed. That umbrella, all four stakes. No shot that beach umbrella doesn't have everything it needs to be required to put into the floor or into the sand. So yeah. Second question I had from Kirby's family revelations today. Travel ball dad. First of all, played a lot of travel ball in my life. Ain't never in my life played a travel baseball tournament in Mississippi. So whatever they're making these kids do in the summer, I'm sorry. Because sweating it out in Mississippi playing travel baseball sounds miserable. Travel baseball, Kirby dad. What's that like?
I think you watch Kirby Smart on the sideline with the Georgia game. He's very boisterous. He's very out and about. He's yelling. He's got the get back guy. I think he's the exact opposite of that when he's there for his kids. I think when you see someone
Like I don't want to be known guy.
yeah, like he doesn't want to draw attention to himself because I mean, obviously he has a presence when he walks in. He's very smart. So I think he's very laid back. He's obviously cheers and very proud of his kids, but I don't think he's anything like you would see on Saturdays. He's intense.
I envision Kirby being very quiet during the games, kind of like you're saying, like doesn't want to be really necessarily noticed, doesn't want the people to necessarily know that he's there. But once you get in that car ride home, he's the dad that's going to give you a little talking to about, hey, this is what we need to fix. Didn't like this mentality here. Didn't like your approach here. We need to fix this next time. He'll give you the car ride home speech, but other than that, he's not going to be yelling at you during the game. He's not going to be the one crying about the umpire or anything like that.
I bet there are some just general coaching lessons that he probably tries to apply in general because he just probably can't shut it off. Like,
Yeah.
however could you shut it off if you're a dad like that? I picture Kirby Smart sitting on the left field foul pole, okay? Out on the left field foul pole, not doing nothing, maybe a bag of sunflower seeds, originals, not like super, almost like, man, is that guy psycho? What's buddy out? Cargo shorts, golf polo, no logo on it at all. Okay, no visor. Okay, for the first time ever, he's gonna wear a real ball cap, and he's gonna be in some type of Oakleys. I actually saw. So what?
Do you think he's in like the sky?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, he's on the left field foul pole. He's like, I don't want to be seen. I'm over here. And here's how I know this, because all these coaches, particularly these Northwest Georgia folks, all right, all of them are cut the same. I met Will Muschamp the first time ever at a Hustle Inc. It was a Tony Bowers quarterback camp over in Cobb County, Forsyth. And next thing I know, I'm looking over and I'm like, that is definitely Will Muschamp. Like that's 1,000% Will Muschamp. And sure as hell, he's got his golf hat pulled all the way down. He's got the biggest sunglasses on you've ever seen, and he's got a Harvard shirt on. Like the base stock Walmart Harvard shirt. Like, bro, you definitely bought that, so I didn't think you are who you are. What we doing, man? It's not that big of a deal. So, yeah, I definitely see Kirby going incognito. Jonathan, travel ball dad, Kirby Smart, what you got?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing as you. Like, definitely, like, leaning up against the fence away from the people. Just so he, like the beach, he just wants to be in his own mindset, and he wants to indulge in the game the way that he wants to and just focus on his son playing baseball. But yeah, I would love to see Kirby Smart dad mode in general, whether that's vacation mode or travel mode.
He definitely also has a big ass bucket.
Big old bucket.
He always got any gift he's where he's watching games. He watches a basketball game. He's at high school gift. He's watching Justin Fields. He's always eating popcorn.
Always eating popcorn. All right, so what we're gonna do now that we got the goofy questions out of the way and we had an opportunity to kind of get the boys warmed up. By the way, good work the last couple of days from you guys up here in Nashville. You as well, back there behind the sticks, Fisher. Big day for you tomorrow, big dog. Big day for you tomorrow. South Carolina Gamecocks on the prowl and on the podium. We're gonna hear the boy Shane Beamer get after it. One of my favorite quotes, by the way, that Beamer guy. But here's what we're gonna do. We obviously listened to Kirby today. He had two different press conferences. Most of y'all probably have already seen or watched the first one or read some clippings upon it. The other one was in an electronic meeting room, and it didn't really get as much pub. But what we're going to do here tonight is kind of walk you through some bullet points, some general outlines of things that stuck out like sore thumbs to us from today's meeting. First of which was in his opening. And we heard a lot of them. We've heard 7 of them by now, right? We heard 4 today, 3 yesterday. We've heard 7 football coaches come to the podium this week so far. And of all of them, and again, some people say I'm biased, but if you go back and listen to this, you will understand. That dude is so uniquely connected to his football players. If you listen to him talk about Kamari Lassiter, it wasn't about how he's just some 3-star recruit from Tuscaloosa Academy that started as a redshirt sophomore. And I remember this great play against Vandy. That's not what it is. I remember a very unique story about Kamari when I went into a meeting room and I found out his why. I found out that his mom was struggling to not only put food on the table, but struggling to put food on the table in order to save enough money to send Kamari to private school at Tuscaloosa Academy. That's what we learned today about Kamari. Very unique story. When I heard him talk about Sedrick Vanm Pran Granger, I heard him recall a story from the national title practices when Kirby was on the intercom system and angry about their practicing effort and saying, none of you are practicing as if you want to be here. And Sedrick Vanm Pran walked up to him after practice and said, sir, that hurt my feelings. Very unique intrapersonal relationship and story. When I heard him talk about Brock Bowers, I heard him talk about the thing about Brock Bowers. Not that he is shy, that he is, what did he call him? The quietest, hardest working guy he's ever met in his life. The quietest hard worker in the room. That's exactly Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers does not talk. Brock Bowers does not want to be noticed. Brock Bowers just wants to work hard. He wants to work harder than you, and that's exactly who he is. So when I hear Kirby talk about those 3 players, I know that's not just those 3 players. That is a microcosm of his football team. This is a football coach that is very uniquely connected to the people he asks to go out and sacrifice for him on Saturdays. When you hear him talk about that, and particularly it's probably the first time you've really watched the other guys. I'm not speaking for you, Kirby, but like watching the other coaches versus watching Kirby and listening to how the love that he has for his players, the direct relationship. What'd you take from that day?
I mean, it's obvious he has a deep caring about them, not only as athletes, as players, what they can do for his program, but as men. I think that's kind of his takeaway. The thing I took away that was the most interesting about it was he took time to mention their majors in the GPA.
Yeah.
Like no other college coach I've ever seen has mentioned this is our player. He's studying this, he has this GPA, like a true student athlete focusing on that. So that was really unique to me. I think that's kind of just the guy he is, like, just deeply cares about the player.
Yeah, and for me, it's the fact that, there's 85 plus players on this roster. And so for him to put in the time and put in the effort to make sure that he has connections with each and every one of those players, on top of trying to manage a college football program and be the best program in college football, it just says a lot about not only him as a coach, but him as a person and how those things matter to him, things that off the field.
And it goes back to the open that we talked about tonight, right? Like talk is cheap. Talk is 100% cheap. And every coach in America talks about wanting to develop relationships and one-on-one facets. That's what recruiting is all about, right? Getting the kid to commit for you and come to play for you. But it goes out and lives it. And a byproduct of this is, and I love hearing this from coaches. It's one of my side notes tonight. But when I hear football coaches, particularly coordinators, past coordinators that have made it to the head coaching position, when I hear them say things like, well, it's too much for me, I got a little overextended, and I had to take a step back and give that responsibility and entrust someone else with that. And an example of this is what Kirby talked about today with Kamari, right? Being able to have the time to go into those skull sessions, which the skull sessions were a byproduct of COVID and allowing guys to get closer together as a byproduct of the George Floyd issues and all the racial issues that were going on in America. That's when all these skull sessions came about in 2022 or 2020. So they all had reasons. They all had purposes. And again, talk is cheap, man. Like this dude goes out and does it. What's some other things that you might have taken away there, Josh?
Well, one other thing I was going to say about that actually is it makes me think about if you've ever watched the sidelines after Georgia comes away with one, especially like big games like the Ohio State game, any playoff game, national championship games, you'll see him embracing with a lot of his players, and they have conversations with one another that look like they are not just like, hey, I love how you play today, but it's like, man, I know what you've been through in your life. I know what happens behind closed doors, and I know you as a person, and I know what this moment specifically means for you. Like you've seen in those moments with Stetson Bennett, which I know he's a quarterback, but still, like having those moments, building those relationships, man, that's key to a great culture for a program, no doubt.
And
yeah, I was going to say the thing that I think really struck me was interesting, and I don't know if we're going to talk about this another day, but Brock Bowers was obviously very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So it's, when you see people like that who don't do well in front of camera, it's kind of like, why would you bring him? Obviously, he's the best tight end in the country. But to me, and Kirby Smart kind of joked about when he first got to his not pregame, but opening statement. You made a joke about it, but it's obvious that he brought Brock there because he knows that he's going to be a first round pick, probably a top 10 pick, and he's going to have the camera in front of his face for the rest of his life. So he's challenging Brock Bowers to be more comfortable in front of the camera like that, just even pushing him further and further like that. So I think that kind of stuck out to me. That's the reason why Brock Bowers.
Kind of a constantly coaching type of deal. Speaking of constantly coaching, both of you push the mics just a little bit closer to your mouths. No, man, you're 100% correct in identifying the fact that, hey, he wanted this dude uncomfortable. He not only wanted him uncomfortable, he knew he would be uncomfortable and chose to do exactly that. I thought one of the statistics that he brought out today was phenomenal. 17 of 20 players from that 2021 signing class, which he called the COVID class, which you guys remember, the 2021 signing class, which is the Brock Bowers class, is the Brock Vandergrift class, it's the Mary's Mims class. If you will remember, COVID hit in February of 2020. So that was the spring going into the fall of the senior year of all of these football players. And they were confined to their homes. They were unable to go onto campuses, so they had to make their college decisions without any type of official visits, any type of information, any type of ability to actually meet with football coaches in person. A guy like Brock Bowers didn't really get a chance to come out to Athens. In fact, he had to fly out to Athens by himself and take a visit through the downtown area by himself without the coaching staff. So these are football players in that 2021 signing class that made a decision to come to the University of Georgia, not necessarily blindly, but as blindly as you possibly could in the recruiting world. And Kirby Smart said today that 17 of the 20 players from that class are still on the roster today, which is phenomenal, first of all. It just doesn't happen. But most importantly, that list of 17 players, guys, and I'm going to ask you here in a second, who are the 3 that are no longer on the roster? So start thinking. I don't want you to be too surprised. Of those 17 guys on the roster, it's not a bunch of dudes that are playing, by the way, guys. Listen to some of these names that are extremely, extremely patient football players in a world of college football where patience does not exist. It ceases to exist nowadays. We live in a world of instant gratification, just like you get when you see that thumb fly up, when you hit that thumbs up button on this YouTube channel, instant gratification. But listen to some of these names, man. Brock Vandergrift, 5-star quarterback. Xavier Sword, 5-star linebacker. Michael Morris, number 1 offensive lineman in the state of Georgia. Number 2 offensive lineman in the state of Georgia in that class. Nyland Green, top 100 corner in that class. John Jefferson, the number 1 defensive end in the state of Georgia in that class. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins has not transferred, ladies and gentlemen. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins was on the 2 deep behind Trayvon Walker in 2021. In 2023, he will enter his junior season as the third string defensive end behind Michael Williams and Tramel Walthour. Has not hit the portal. Absurd, completely random, and uncommon in the world of college football today. What did you take from that stat?
I mean, retention is key. One of the words he said. I think another stat that was just encouraged that out was every full-time coach that is on staff in this year's coaching roster was on last year's roster.
Yeah.
Which is insane. Which pretty much means everyone who left, Todd Monk and others, just what's the word?
Replaced. Field and replaced.
Promoted within. Yeah. Promoted within.
Hey, first step off on the channel. Everybody golf clap for Kirby.
Promoted within, like Mike Butler, things like that. So it's just really incredible to see that he's promoting within and keeping his talent in-house.
Yeah, no, he peeled and replaced the last 2 years, right? He did the same thing with Dan Lanning. Slide Will Muschamp into a co-DC role, had him on an analyst staff, buddy that we used to have, did the same thing with Bobo this year. And I think he did that, just to talk about the coordinator. I think he did that by design, right? You stashed Bobo last offseason, and you pay him whatever it was, $350,000 to be an analyst, and one of the most vocal analysts in the history of analysts, I would imagine. Same thing for Muschamp. But you did so knowing that in 2021, after the first national title, Todd Monken was flirting like hell. Every week, I felt like we were texting in Dogs Daily's chat saying, hey, might need to get something reported on this. Hey, inklings here. Todd Monken might be interviewing for a job here. So they definitely knew it was coming, and you are right. The retention, he said it today, retention is the key to sustainability, is what his quote was today. So you're 100% right on that. I thought the other insane statistic was the fact that Jonas Jennings, Ron Corson, and Scott Cochran. Scott Cochran were all on the original staff 8 years ago when he came to this football program at the University of Georgia, and all three of those guys immensely important to the level of success. I want to talk about one guy in particular, and Jonas Jennings. I know Georgia fans know about Ron Corson. I know you know about Scott Cochran and Scott Sinclair, by the way, not Cochran. I know you know about Scott Sinclair, and I know you know about all those guys that help out. But not a lot is talked about Jonas Jennings, who is, I don't know his exact role, but he's basically the director of player relations. Like, he is essentially there to make sure that players' lives are going well, and if there's anybody that they need to talk to, or if there's anything going on in their world where they might need some help, or they just need a shoulder to lean on, or anybody to lean on, that is Jonas Jennings' job, is to develop them as human beings, and he's played a pivotal role here at the University of Georgia. So shouts out to Jonas Jennings. Another bullet point. What you got?
Well, I'm a stats guy, so I love those things. By the way, they're still saying they can't hear Kirby at all.
Guys, he's babying it. Speak up.
Speak up. There you go. All right.
My fault, everybody.
But, yeah, I'm a stat guy, so I really honed in on these retention stats as well. And I think also he kind of continued to talk about it later on because someone asked him, and he made a point that he said, I'm always wanting to make sure that people enjoy their work environment here.
Yeah.
And he said that he wants to make sure that their coaches have time to be at home with their family, because if they have time to be home with their family, then that means they're going to enjoy what they do here at Georgia as well. And when they come into work, they're ready to work and they're in a clean state of mind. And so I think it's almost like full circle what we've talked about. And it's just,
by the way, not something that any coach has talked about this week.
No.
About how hard their guys work for them.
No.
I hear all kinds of college football coaches bitch, moan, and complain about the schedule. Not a single one has told me, yeah, we're complaining about the schedule, but also we have gone about doing this. He said he brought in professionals to help them streamline their approach in order for them to have more time with their family. Like, again, man, it's everything. It's everything. All of it matters 100%. I thought he talked today about how he goes about bringing people into the building and bringing people into his program. He says he asks two questions, whether it's football players, staff members, friggin' janitors. All right. If they want to come work at the University of Georgia around the Georgia football program, they have to answer two questions unequivocally with a yes. One, do they love football? And two, do they embrace the selfless role, is the way he put it. I don't have any super deep thoughts about this, but if you can do those two things, well, just in general, if you love football, it's a prerequisite to play in college. To work for that guy and to work at that place and to work anywhere around the football world to be successful, man, you can't just like football. You got to really love it, or else you'll get burnt out on it really quickly. And do you embrace the selfless role? I'm not selfless. I know that. So if Kirby, if you're watching, I can't ever work for you. I love me way too much. I love me way, way, way too much to be ever entitled as selfless, or titled as selfless. But that's okay. I'm self-aware enough to know that.
And I think it's nice to know too, because I think that's a way that a lot of people have described Georgia's defense over the past couple of years, is they play selflessly. Because when people want to evaluate Georgia's defensive players, like opposing fans and whatnot, they always want to look at the box score. Well, look at his box score. He's not exactly stuff in the stat sheet.
Right.
That's because Georgia's defense isn't about stuff in the stat sheet. It's about maybe doing something to open something up for your teammate. And so I like being able to build that connection, know where that's coming from. And hear Kirby explain that, like, you have to be selfless, and that's why that defense works so well in both sides of the football, because it's a bunch of selfless human beings that care just as much as the guys sitting next to them as they do about themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's the no-name defense. That's kind of what Georgia's been known for.
I just wonder how all of that messaging and all that messaging, I wonder how it came over and how it fell upon the ears of those who didn't have national championship success. You know what I mean? Like the 2018 team, the 2019 team, the 2020 team, week 9, week 10, when he is just going on and on about the same stuff he's been going on and on about, and it's not necessarily producing the results that you might want. Like, how do you rely on the fact that it is right and that it's true? And as a coach, how do you remain on that same wavelength? How do you remain on that same message of avoiding complacency and doing all the right things. And as Jimbo would say, creating the habits yesterday. We got our mantra. We got our mantra this week. Better never rest. And that is a fact, and he said it twice. I want you to think hard about that, media folks. Better never rest. I think that is true. I think Steve Harvey would tell you this. Steve Harvey went viral for letting everyone know that, like, hey, if you're going to be successful, you ain't out here sleeping 8 hours a night. All right.
I've seen that TikTok so many times.
I mean, it's not true. You know what I mean? If you're out here sleeping until 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, you're probably not a one-of-one. You're probably not a one percenter. And I've heard Kobe Bryant talk about this, and it's not particularly like actually sleeping, not that rest, but just the idea that you're going to sit back on your heels or you are going to be happy with the accomplishments that you have. That is not what the best do, and that is not how better gets accomplished, right? If you want to be better, there's no rest, there is no break, there is no breathing.
I actually remember you telling me that one time. Like, I think about a year ago, you're like, you better get used to running on like 5-6 hours of sleep, buddy, because that's how we got to get great in this business. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
every once in a while I try to espouse a little wisdom on you. And I was telling you guys in the hotel room, like, I dropped a on something Kirby said, and I paused the video and I started writing down, like, what are you writing? And I explained to you guys that that's a human being that I study. Damn football, damn my job. If I never were to cover the University of Georgia again from a professional perspective, I would study the shit out of that guy. No different than I do now, because I do believe he is very uniquely gifted with how he streamlines his own thoughts, how he makes sure he is constantly improving, or else he wouldn't be who he is today. What you got? You got any others?
as far as constantly improving.
Yeah, no. As far as bullet points, things that stood out from you today.
The one thing I thought was funny was, and I don't know if people who watched, we would have had to have watched the actual media questioning, but this 7-5 narrative is getting out of hand. Someone today kind of did a joke, was like, by the way, this guy said we're going 7-5, and Kirby just blatantly, clearly ignored it. He said he couldn't hear him. It was like, oh, I couldn't hear what he said. He just brushed by it, though.
Couldn't hear what he said, but it must have been funny.
It's funny where that narrative came from.
I thought it was interesting too. He's like, don't get it twisted. That was never said by me. Like, don't think that I'm out here put like, because people are always saying, oh, that's bulletin board material. Kirby's gonna be using that. He's like, I don't do none of that. Like, maybe my players do. Maybe they read stuff, but that's not for me.
He dropped that gem in the electronic media room. That was the second press conference that I don't think a lot of people saw. And you are correct. He was like, look, man, I'm a self-confidence coach. All right. He said last year when our football team come back from defending a national title, everybody had told these guys, y'all lost 15 draft picks. So the last thing I'm going to tell them is that they're 7-5. No. He said the whole offseason, all he did was tell them how good they could be. If you do these things, you will be great. You know what I mean? Like, I am a confidence coach. I thought, yeah, you're right. That stuck out like a sore thumb, in my opinion. The retention stats we've already hit on, those are absolutely insane. Kirby Smart teased the home and home.
Yeah,
Kirby Smart teased the home and home with the Florida Gators coming up. For those of you who don't know, TIAA Bank Field down there in Jacksonville, Florida, which is a dump, is going to be renewed. Okay, and since Dr. Khan, all right, down there, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't think he's a doctor, but nonetheless, you know how Johnny Khan, actually, I don't think his first name is Johnny either. Do you know how Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, made his billions?
No idea.
He reinvented the truck hitch. Okay, before Mr. Khan, if y'all remember old school body trucks, they'd have that thick bumper, then they have that one thin piece of metal, and the ball hitch would sit right on top of it, and then have the other thick bumper. Well, the actual pintle hitch was created by Mr. Khan, and he made so much money off of it that he ended up buying the Jacksonville Jaguars. Spent way too much time in a doctor's office one time when I was in high school. Read that on a what were we talking about? Oh, TIA Bankfield gonna get revamped. They don't have enough money to build it on a secondary location, and they don't have a secondary location. So they're basically demoing, building anew on the same spot. So in the very soon coming years, you're going to see a home and home between the Florida Gators and the Georgia Bulldogs, played in both Athens and Jacksonville. First off, loved Kirby's quote on this today. He was basically like, well, I don't really care, but I care. Went well on into the answer that he's had for years now about how neutral site game kind of bullshit. The fact that my biggest game on my schedule every single year, I can't host no damn recruits for it. So we know his stance on it. What do you think about the idea of a home and home against the Gators?
I think it goes to a home and home. It's not coming back.
You think so?
Because I mean, my dad always tells me about when in '95 when Florida game and beat the shit out of Georgia, how crazy that was. I think if you get that this year and after this upcoming this team that Georgia has right now, they're not going to want to go back to Jacksonville. I mean, the way Frat reaches right now, St. Simon's has been so unlocked with farming like that, so it's kind of like really not a huge point.
What is St. Simon's like? What is the idea of the party of the Bees? I've never been.
It's like the middle ground for Georgia Florida fans to go for that.
Is it a rager?
Oh, yeah.
It's a huge.
It's worth it.
There's like costume themes and stuff like that.
It's
every
all
day.
near Halloween.
A bad time to be sober. Thoughts on home and home in that game?
I think actually that if Florida would want it to go back home and home or go back to a neutral site because they get tired of their own team getting embarrassed in front of their own fans eventually, probably. If it stays the same 20
In terms of the lopsided rivalry?
Yeah, I don't know if they'd be wanting to bring in recruits anymore when Georgia comes into town. They're just getting,
You say that, though. Auburn, every year, that damn Auburn-Alabama Iron Bowl game, they got dudes. I'm talking about 5-star after 5-star taking Auburn business. And you're like,
well, I guess if it is like that unique atmosphere,
It will be.
which is what it would be.
It will be. It would be.
So that would provide that.
It 100% would be. It would be a game on October 31st that and that's what Kirby was saying today, every recruit in America would want to go to that game. Because, I mean, even the TV networks schedule away. If you notice, like, there aren't a lot of big football games during that 3:30 slot that every single year they know Georgia and Florida is going to be playing at because they know the entire southeastern division of the country is going to be watching.
What percentage of the swamp would Georgia take over?
I don't think it would be that much because I do think Gainesville fans are very. If there's one thing about Florida fans, it's that they're adamant and they're kind of belligerent and ignorant to an extent, but they are definitely belligerent. And very, very passionate.
I mean, dog strap. I mean, you've seen. So obviously the Notre Dame game.
Correct. Correct.
Like even Norman, Oklahoma, I think they would have been really.
So if you're asking me, can Georgia fans buy out Florida fans? Yeah. Smell like broke. Yeah.
I mean, think about it. In 2025, 2026, Georgia's probably going to be ahead of the curve.
Absolutely.
If I'm a Florida fan, I might try to make something.
I also thought his comments about Lane Kiffin in the electronic media room were very, very telling. He was asked about the matchup between Lane Kiffin, and he was asked about competing against Lane Kiffin. And after he talked about how he doesn't necessarily want to play him because he respects Lane, big, lot of respect day. Huge lot of respect day today. Tomorrow, big I day. You're going to hear a lot of I's tomorrow. But today was a lot of respect. Got a tremendous amount of respect and a lot of respect for Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and the way he calls plays and all that stuff. But I thought the most important thing that Kirby said about Lane today was about how Lane does not allow recruiting to get in between their relationship. If you don't know, Lane and Kirby Smart have a very, I'm not going to say close relationship, but they are friends. They're very amicable with one another. They lean on one another for not only football-related relationships, but life-related relationships as well. And to hear him talk about what he's saying is essentially, Lane does not counter-recruit me. Lane does not go out and tell kids, you don't need to play for that guy because of this, or you don't need to play for Georgia because of this. Lane only goes about recruiting for Ole Miss. Come to play for Ole Miss because of this that Ole Miss does, right? And I'm here to tell you that might sound like that's what everyone does, but that is not the case. That is not how recruiting operates in this world, not with regards to how people recruit against Georgia. When guys are pitted up against Georgia on the recruiting trail, there's a whole lot of counter recruiting. There's a whole lot of, hey, receiver X, you don't need to go there. They don't have a 1,000-yard receiver since Terrence Edwards. Hey, offensive lineman X, you don't need to go there. They got way too many guys. Dylan Fairchild hadn't even played, dude. Michael Morris hadn't even played. Quarterback, oh, you don't need to go there. They're going to make you transfer. Look what they did to all the 5-stars. There's a ton of counter recruiting, okay, particularly from the up north particularly. I'm looking at you. They wear red and black. Lot of don't go play for Georgia. They're bad. I've even heard of a Big Ten coach telling a 5-star that Athens' party life is mid. Sir, you're just lying. You're just flat out lying. And that's okay. Like, recruiting's about being a used car salesman. We don't have to lie. And I thought it was very important for note today, because it stuck out to me. It stuck out like sore thumb, knowing how the recruiting world works, knowing how things like that operate, and knowing that counter recruiting is done on a day-to-day basis in this world, particularly in East Georgia.
I think it speaks a lot to how much Lane Kiffin values Kirby Smart's relationship, because someone like Ole Miss, who hasn't necessarily been a top dog in the West or anything like that, but is trying to get to that point, is trying to reach up to that point, you would think that he'd be in the business of negatively recruiting Georgia and trying to at least snag maybe one player from Georgia. And for him to be above that and say, that's not the type of business I want to be about, that is a friend of mine, that's someone I respect, I think that says a lot about Lane Kiffin, because, and both Kirby Smart as well, because I think when you see Lane Kiffin in the media, that may not be the vibe that you get from him.
Yeah.
So hearing Kirby talk about that and in the manner that he did, yeah, definitely speaks a lot.
They obviously got a lot of respect. But no, I think
Tremendous amount of respect.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that, and I kind of wonder, because Lane Kiffin has been notorious for kind of sour relationships with places, like he did at Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
From what I understand, things at Alabama didn't go so long as they did. So I guess that him and Kirby always kind of got along in that sense.
Yeah.
And so Kiffin really respects that and goes along with him.
I would imagine there's a lot of, hey, what gives you problems? Talk going back and forth, because those are two of our most elite minds, respectively, right? Offensively and defensively. I think Lane and Kirby are both top 5 in their respective, coaching ranks, if you will. And I would imagine there's a ton of, hey man, like when teams get into Tripp's bunch, it really gives us issues. Or when teams, play odd front and they walk that defensive end out into a wide 9, so you don't really know whether to count him as a 4 down or whether to count him as a space player. Like, these things give us problems, right? Those types of relationships are invaluable. Those types of relationships are also very, very common in the world of football. The fact that there's no counter recruiting or no devious use of that relationship, it makes it unique. You know what I mean? It 100% makes it unique. We got some special things for you guys tonight, okay? Don't know if you know this, but Kirby made a cameo on your boy's interview today with Ben Jones. I haven't shown you that interview with Ben Jones, so we're going to show you that here in a little bit. But before we do that, I want to show you this interview with Kamari Lassiter, because I think it's very unique. And it's what I do, okay? We are the film guy here, and what you will notice about how I try to cover athletes is that, yes, we will talk football, but I'm trying to give you an opportunity to talk about yourself as well and talk about your life. So couple of kudos here, a couple shout outs here to the beat reporters that may or may not be watching tonight that were around me when I did this interview with Kamari. Thank you. Thank you for not jumping in. Thank you for not being a butt when I was being a butt, asking multiple questions in a row. So I wanted to get that out there and let you know I noticed what you did for your boy. And as soon as I said that, we don't actually have it ready, but it's okay. It's a quick drop into the file for your homie. Hey, Nashville's been a good week. It's only halfway over. We're going to be here till Thursday. So make sure you're staying locked in and loaded here on the channel. Best way to do that, of course, is to subscribe. Make sure you're hitting that like button. And there's a little bell over there. It'll tell you notifications. And what that will allow you to do is that'll allow you to have notifications on the channel. So whenever we are live, you will know it. Okay. Y'all been complaining about the audio. I'm going to let you know. Turn it down. Okay. Turn it down right now. We're about to play some audio that's coming in from a different sound source. So it's going to be loud. So if you've got your audio turned all the way up, there's your forewarning. I gave you about 15 seconds of filibuster. So hope you enjoy this. We'll be back on the other end.
Put the work in, and it's going to show off on the field.
Kamari, just a couple, probably a year ago this time, you were in the same position as some of your counterparts at corner are, battling for the spot next to the starter in Keeley. What kind of advice have you given, some of your teammates about, battling for that other spot alongside you?
I was just really been trying to, just hone in that you just got to put your head down and go to work. It's the time of the year where, you got to show that you're consistent, you can play at a high level, you got to show your teammates and your coaches that, that you're reliable and that you can play at a high level for us and play within our system and play to our standard.
Unique football question, you can feel free to say, not answer it. Against Oregon last year, y'all flipped field and boundary. You played to the field, Keeley played to the boundary. It's the only time I've ever seen Georgia do it since Kirby's been here. Why?
I actually have no idea.
You don't even remember?
I don't even remember why we did it. We just did it.
That's a good answer. Next question for you. Coming out of Tuscaloosa Academy, coach was talking about all the sacrifices your mom put in to put you in that private school. That's your why, he said. Explain your why.
Yeah, my why is definitely, just my mom, from the day I was born, she's done nothing but just do everything she possibly can to make sure that I've had nothing but the best, whether it be the best academics, the best school, with football, she's done her part. So now it's my time to, do my part.
I think the first play I remember you for at Georgia was your interception against Vandy, your freshman year. Was that kind of your welcome to the stage moment? Mm-hmm. Talk me through that play.
So I was actually playing the wrong coverage. I actually got in trouble in the film room, but we were in the coverage, and I had bad eyes, and I was just watching the quarterback the whole time, and I just ran down there like on some high school little league football and just dove and caught the pick. So I didn't get it. If he would have caught it, it would have been way worse. But
appreciate you. So, a couple things to note right there, right? First of all, your first career interception, I don't know if you're going to hear that because y'all know the side of it. First career interception, Kamari Lassiter, he picks the ball against Vandy. Apparently, he was totally doing the wrong thing. He was ball watching and quarterback watching, and he got his ass chewed on Monday when we were on social media going, my God, look who might be the next great corner.
I feel like every athlete has had that moment where you go and make a great play, but in your mind, you're like, I was not doing the right thing. You're definitely getting chewed out in the film session.
I've never done that. I've never made the right play doing the wrong thing. My luck doesn't work like that. If I'm doing the wrong thing, I get messed up.
Yeah, no, I literally got on TV in high school one time because I recovered a fumble, and I was doing dead wrong.
Dead wrong.
First play was
Love it. I had a buddy, random note here. I had a buddy in high school. His name's Ethan Sewell. His huddle highlight tape, the first play of it, is actually him getting a personal foul for talking shit in an overtime game. And instead of circling himself, he circled the flag of the referee. The referee threw the flag like way up. And he's like, circled the flag, and then it cut Ethan Sewell senior highlights. It was hard, bro. It was hard as hell. I think Chief Keef was actually the background music. We went to a private Christian school. Where was I going next? Oh, we're gonna talk about Kamari a little bit more. Got to find out the why there, right? We talked a little bit earlier about Kamari's mom. You hear the kids going to Tuscaloosa Academy, right? You hear the kids going to a Christian school or a private school education. You think, oh, must come from good background. Must come from medium income or decent income. Must have come from a silver spoon or whatever. Not the case. Kamari Lassiter's mom was doing some rather heroic efforting to make sure he was in an upper level of education. I thought the other thing that was just a flat lie was when my man said he didn't know why they flipped against Oregon. Okay, if you go back, this is a me thing again. This is the channel, and no one cares. You probably don't care. Listen to this. One game, I've seen one game in like 40 that I've studied, maybe 50 that I've studied of Kirby Smart defense, where they flipped boundary and field. Meaning, if I'm on the boundary, okay, and the ball is on the left hash, and I'm over here on the left side, and now all of a sudden the ball goes to the right hash, and I'm on the field side, like I'm on to the field, I have to run across and play boundary. They haven't done it, rarely, if ever, to my knowledge, but yet they did it against Oregon, and I'm like, why? Well, I wanted to see if Kamari remembered, or if Kamari would tell me why. He definitely remembered, definitely did not want to tell me why. The answer was, schematically, they noticed that Oregon and Dillingham, OC, they favored one of their receivers. I think it was number 11, Super Burner. They like to run him vertical into the boundary. So who's their fastest corner last year? Keely Ringo. They traveled him into the boundary all game. And this was actually, per my sourcing, a suggestion from Fran Brown. Okay, so think about this. This was last year because Fran somehow had crossed over with the receiver. Okay, but Fran made this suggestion first game as a defensive backs coach at the University of Georgia, and made it to a defensive head coach who had made his career off of being a defensive backs coach. So if you're thinking of Kirby Smart, like it's my first time giving this guy an opportunity to coach my program, of course. Yeah, we'll take your suggestion. We'll change something that we do schematically that we have not changed in quite some time. I think that speaks a lot to the willingness to bend and the willingness to trust those around you. We talked about it a little bit earlier. I admire men, not just coaches. I admire men who are man enough to know what their shortcomings are and smart enough to find someone who is better at it to do those things. A couple of other things I got for you. I do want to show you this Ben Jones interview because, hey, Kirby Smart's going to make his first known appearance outside of a presser on this here channel. Shouts out to Ben Jones. Appreciate you doing this, buddy. Not that you watch the show. I don't think Ben's got Twitter at all. I think he's got anything. So he definitely didn't know who I was when I introduced myself today. And also, you'll notice off this video, I'm like 3 inches from being Ben Jones. I'm 3 inches from having a Hall of Fame career. If you don't believe me, watch this shit. I'm just kidding. Shouts out Ben Jones. Ben Jones, a little hometown event for you, huh?
No doubt. It's right down the road for me. So when I heard Georgia was going to be here today, I was like, I got to come. So I made some calls and made it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking about it. You obviously played center at Georgia, played for Stacey Searles, and now Stacey back at the University of Georgia. What's your relationship with Coach Searles like?
He was just in town last week, but my kids had the stomach virus, so I didn't get to see him. But I talked to him probably once a week, sending him different stuff for Sed, and he's literally like a father figure for me from getting there, from losing my dad at 10 and being that rock for me. Really turned me into a man when I was in college. Like, he knew how to push me to the limits, how to be a leader, how to lead a family. You see his wife there, his daughter's there. And I was like, man, I want to be like that guy. Like, he's got it figured out.
If I remember correctly, or at least I've heard this, y'all still watch film together, don't you?
Yeah.
He's still coaching you a little bit.
No doubt. I send him tape. Like, I went back this offseason, like, hey, this is what I'm doing at center. This is how we're doing different blocks. He's like, oh, what about this? Like, what are you thinking here? Like, my guys are getting held on certain blocks. I'm like, hey, we do it with length here instead of with the shoulder.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay. He's like, hey, what about if your stance? So we're always tweaking stuff, sending stuff. Like, hey, send me some one-on-one pass clips so I can show my center, like, different stuff. So I'm sending him clips throughout the week and trying to help him as much as possible.
You mentioned Sedrick, obviously, I'm pretty sure preseason all SEC center, coming back for his 4th year. Where could you see Sedrick improve?
Sedrick, that's the thing, is from your junior, senior year, it's a big jump because I was sitting in the same shoes, like, hey, do I leave? Do I come back? And it's just being that leader, that role model, and trying to get all the guys to buy in. Like, they've won 2 championships. Why come back?
Yeah.
Because he wants to be that leader. He wants to be the all-time captain. He wants to do something special. Who's won 3 in a row? Like, he's there to do something special. For me, we just had a losing season my junior year. I was like, I'm going to go out a winner. Yeah. We went to the SEC championship my senior year, and guys came back, and we did it the right way. And I think he wants to do it the same way. And such a smart kid and works extremely hard. And he wants to know the details. It's not just, hey, he wants to have a picture. We're literally dialing in like, hey, how we do this, how we do that. Just an unreal kid.
Not a Georgia question, a Ben Jones question. You're like notoriously tough. Like, you're a badass dude. You're tough as hell. What's the key to playing through toughness? Like, where does it come from? Where's it playing through injury?
I think growing up on that cattle farm in my hometown and just, hey, no matter what, the work's got to get done no matter what. And I'm getting to play a game that I love, and I can't go play no matter what. And I see my brother how hard he works. He's in a steel mill every day. He shows up every day to work. I think it's just the Georgia way. You got to have tough guys.
What do you think what Kirby Smart's been doing at the school so far?
He should have come to Alabama because I was recruiting
me and
couldn't get him. Didn't know that all his cousins and aunts and uncles went to Georgia.
Well, dogs. I'm loyal. I'm a loyal dog.
I appreciate you guys, man. Appreciate y'all. Live from SEC Media Day, Kirby Smart, Ben Jones. Appreciate y'all. Yeah, so shout out to the head man there jumping in. I'm glad that microphone's not like super sensitive because I'm pretty sure we got some off record Kirby, maybe an F-bomb thrown in there in the background. That dude remembers everything about every recruitment, right? Like, he's at Alabama. Ben Jones obviously played at Georgia, I think 2009 and 2012. Does that sound about right? So from that time range, Kirby's at Alabama and tried to recruit Ben Jones. And this is what I was telling you guys today is, I don't know if everyone knows this about Kirby. You probably do if you're a Georgia fan and you're adamant about your fandom. But some people don't realize that Kirby Smart's tenure at Alabama, that dude's been the best recruiter in the the game of college football for almost 15 years, 14 years, like dating back to like 2010, 2011, when he really starts climbing the ranks at Alabama. That dude has been a balling ass recruiter. Okay, so much so that they send him after the 5-star in-state center as the defensive coordinator at Alabama. Think about that. Think about that. They are sending the defensive coordinator to go land offensive football players. And if you go look through Kirby Smart's recruiting tenure at Alabama, you'll see him sign a bunch of dudes that he had no business recruiting, but they just sent him. Why, Jonathan? Why'd you say that? Because he is him. They sent him because he is him. We talked a lot today about Kirby Smart. We talked a lot about how he clearly and evidently aspires to become better every single day. Obviously spends time in self-introspective thought. Obviously spends time wondering how I'm going to get better on a day-to-day basis, okay? Not quarterly, not perennially, not during New Year's time when you want to make resolutions. This is an individual that goes about it every single day. And we left off a standing bullet point tonight in all of our observations. And it was probably the most poignant bullet point, in my opinion. This is something that whether you are a car salesman or whether you're your lead foreman at your job or whether you're a teacher or whether you're an administrator, whatever you do in your world and in your life, these 3 principles that I'm about to read to you that Kirby read to us today, they are everlasting. They will apply to your life no matter what. And they specifically apply to Kirby Smart's life and where he is right now. And this is how I know that he is constantly thinking and constantly working to improve on his own personal self and not just talking about it. Again, talk is cheap and time is wasted, 100%. Kirby gave us 3 costs of leadership today. Okay, he says these 3 bullet points are on Post-it notes right above his desk where he looks every single day. I would imagine probably during his self-introspective time where he comes up with all of this stuff and where he is learning and where he is searching for knowledge. Cost of leadership number 1. You will have to make hard decisions that negatively impact the people you care about. As a leader, there are things that we do in our life that we're going to make decisions that, like he says right here, negatively impact the people that we care most about in our life. Cost of leadership number 2. You will be disliked despite your best attempt to do the best for the most. Okay? Not just do the best, but do the best for the most. You will be constantly disliked despite your best attempt to do the best for the most. I 100% believe that Kirby Smart 100% believes everything that he does. Okay? He goes about living his life with the utmost commitment, 100%. And he does those things with full belief that he is doing the right thing by others involved, based off that principle right there. And I don't know about you guys, but that's kind of unique to where he's at in his life, particularly this number 3. This number 3 cost of leadership. You will be misunderstood and you won't always have the chance to defend yourself. You will be disliked despite your best attempt to do everything right and do the best for others. You will be misunderstood and you won't always have the chance to defend yourself. I don't know about you guys, but I watched a football coach be covered this offseason in a chance that is highly misunderstood. Highly misunderstood, so much so that the school had to require a retraction statement, 9 pages worth of one. Extremely, extremely misunderstood. I've also watched a football coach that has not had the opportunity to defend himself at all. And I watched a football coach today that did not stand up and talk any nonsense about none of that stuff, that did not make any excuses or nothing. I watched a football coach that has clearly, obviously, watched what has happened to him since January 15th and has said, you know what? This is the cost of leadership. This is not something I need to be a victim about. This is the cost. This is what it costs. It costs sometimes to be misunderstood. It costs to be a leader. And sometimes people are going to come at you. You're not going to be able to defend yourself. And sometimes we've got to make decisions that negatively impact those around us that we care most about. Whew! Man, 3 costs of leadership right there. Hey, forgot it again. Hand me my book. There's just too much going on here in Nashville. Okay, too much going on here in Nashville. Just excuses out the ass from your boy. What? Oh, I know. I know now. I know D&D is right there. Hey, I'm gonna tell you what. I obviously wasn't on it. I'm on focus mode. Call me D&D. We'll see y'all later. Have a good one. See y'all tomorrow night.